Hello everyone, and welcome to the walkthrough for my budget by paycheck template. This video is meant to serve as an example reference point. So if you want to get more familiar with the template and how to use it, this is the video tutorial that I would suggest you to watch. And if you just want to watch this video before you purchase to see if you would even like the template, you can go ahead and do that as well. So getting started with the first tab that we have here, we see that we are drawn to the instructions tab. So this is the first thing that you should see. Up at the top, I just have my logo for Monets Money, and down here are the websites of where you can find my items. So I have my shop linked here and my Etsy shop. So if you want to look at those, that's all available, as well as all of my social accounts that can be found here as well on the instructions page. Here is just the welcome letter to thank you for your purchase and give you an overall explanation on how to use it. On the instructions tab, you will see this table of contents where you will have a video tutorial, which is what you are watching now, to learn how to use it. And then I also linked my monthly budget with me. This is a playlist on my YouTube channel of me using this template. So if you want to get some reference points on how to use it, you can go ahead and watch me as I do that month over month. And then the main thing on the instructions tab is to utilize the how to access your file. Now, when you purchase this, you should automatically be sent to make a copy, and then you will be able to make your adjustments. But if for some reason you find yourself within the file and you aren't able to make your inputs or add anything, you have been directed to the master file, and you just need to go ahead and make a copy so that then you can begin your edit. So I just went ahead and put all of the steps that you would need to do right here within this how to access file, and you should be good to go. I also put my email here so that if you have any questions or anything, you can go ahead and message me, and I will try to get back to you as soon as I can with any questions that you have. So if you are familiar with myself and you are a returner subscriber or someone who has heard of me, this is the second installment for my budget template. This particular template, which is budgeting by paycheck, has been highly requested. With my other template, it's just a monthly template, so you just budget by month, but I was asked repeatedly if I can make a budget by paycheck template. So this is what I was able to come up with, and I hope you all enjoy it. So a lot of the tabs and the look and feel of the template are very similar if you have seen that before, and I just made a few adjustments and we'll just go ahead and walk through it. So the first thing to highlight is this currency section. So if you do want to change your currency, I automatically put it in American because that's just the dollars that I'm used to. But say, for example, you just purchased this template and you would prefer for it to read in pounds, you can just go ahead and put that symbol here, and that dollar symbol will translate into all of the other tabs within the template to read in pounds versus American dollars. So I'm just going to put it back to dollars, as I said, because that's what I'm used to, but that was a feature that was highly requested. So if you want to change your type of currency, that's just where you do it within there. So looking down at the tabs that we have to work with within this template, we have the annual dashboard tab, we have the savings tracker tab, we have the calendar tab, we have our monthly tabs. So this will be January through December, but also you see here you have your monthly paycheck tabs. So you have each paycheck tab for each month, and then you have your own monthly tab as well. So I'm going to get started with first explaining the monthly and paycheck tabs because those two really feed the entire template. So just if this is your first time looking at my template and you are unfamiliar how it works, to lay the groundwork of how I created this template, if there is a cell that is in white, that means that is something for you to key in, that is something for you to adjust, and you can go ahead and input whatever information can be changed. However, if a cell is gray or a different type of color, that genuinely means that there is a formula in there and you don't want to change that, because I locked it on purpose so that then no adjustments can be made. Another way to know if there is a formula is that, say you do try to hard key something into a gray cell, you will get this pop-up message to let you know, hey, you are about to make an adjustment to a cell that is locked. So overall, this is your template. And if you are comfortable with Excel and Google Sheets, then I would suggest that you can make your changes. But if you aren't familiar on how things work, you changing this cell can change multiple different parts of this template, and then certain things will not begin to work. So I always suggest to hit cancel so that you don't make those changes. But again, it is your template, but just be warned, if you change something, sometimes I'm not always able to help people who ask me things because they are changing different things within the template. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit cancel. And the overall thought for this template is that it reads budgeted versus actual. So you will see those two columns repeated throughout the template. And budgeted is meant to be used at the start of the month to show you how you anticipate the month to play out. And then your actual is how it actually went. So the main difference with this budget by paycheck template is that the monthly tab is heavily formula driven because, again, we want to budget based off our paychecks, but I still wanted to keep the monthly tab overview so that then once everything is inputted, you can still see for the month how your money did. So for all of your regular monthly tabs, there isn't really much for you to input. The things that you can change are your start dates, so you can still click in here to change your dates if you want to. You can still do your drop down with remaining to budget versus your actual just to see your numbers, and you can still change your dates here for your bills if you would like to add them. But everything else, as you can see, is all in gray, and that is because all of your information is going to be coming from your paycheck budget tabs. So the way this reads is that each section is your paycheck. So for columns A through M, this is all dedicated to paycheck 1. Then if you scroll over here, all of these columns O to AA, this is reflective of your paycheck 2, and so on and so forth. I made it so that then there are 5 paychecks. So if you are ever paid weekly and you get a magic month or magic, week where you get paid 5 times, you can still use it. So that is how you should read your paychecks, that each section gets its own dedicated area. So filling out these paychecks, let's focus on January paycheck 1. Here you see you still have your start dates. Let's say we are paid bi-weekly and our first paycheck was January 2nd. So I'm going to put the start date for January 2nd. And if I'm paid bi-weekly, that means I'm not going to get another paycheck until January 16th. So I would like this paycheck to cover all of my bills until January 15th. So that is how I would do the start dates, just to keep in mind for myself for any bills that may fall between those days. Here you have remaining to budget and remaining actual. So once again, it's another drop down. So we're going to start with budget. And here is your income source. So we can list here Mary. And for her first biweekly check, we can say she's getting $1,100. And then Bill, his can be $2,000. So for this first pay cycle, we're anticipating $3,100, and we see that that has been populated here, and the total is also being entered here. And then it's very similar to the monthly tab. If you fill it out based off of your categories, here we have our bills section, here we have our expenses, here is savings, over here is investments, and here is our debt. Over here is the income summary, but we see that none of this is in white. So that of course means that these are going to auto-populate as we input things. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in some examples for bills and things so that we can get some data to populate. Okay. So I went ahead and put in some information. We can see as we filled out the budgeted column, this budget income breakdown pie chart has also been populating to give us an idea of how much of our money is going where. And we see that our income summary for the budget is also totaling up everything. So looking at our bills for this pay period, we're rolling to $1,060, and we can see that's between our rent and our internet. In terms of expenses for this pay period, it's rolling to $380, and that's across these categories. I listed gas, spending, groceries, eating out, and then these are their amounts. For savings, we're rolling to $1,000, and that's based off of our categories for emergency fund, home, down payment, car maintenance, and their totals. Similar story with Roth IRA for investments, and that's rolling to 100. And then down here we have our debt. So I listed student loans, credit card, 300 and 260. So all of that is being referenced up here at the top. And if you want to take a peek back at your monthly tab, you can see that all of these things that we've entered has automatically been added to reflect all of the inputs that we've made. And they're all falling within your budgeted column. So if you, again, want to see at a monthly view how things are panning, you can peek back here and you would get a similar example of the pie chart and your bar graphs that will begin to populate here. On the monthly tab, these read actual, so there's nothing to fill out until we fill out our actual income. So going back to our January paychecks, let's say that now the paycheck has actually come in, and we can go ahead and put in our actual dollars and see how that changes. So you will want to filter on remaining actual, just so that then once your money is being entered, this number will populate and you can see how it's being deducted and see where you're rolling. Okay, so here we see I inputted my actual numbers. So I was able to get this down to a 0, which is a zero-based budget, and that's how I like to budget for myself personally. But if you like to leave a little bit of rollover, then that number would sit there. Here is your income summary breakdown, just to show overall how each category panned out. However, if you would like to see it at a pie chart level, you would have to go to your monthly tab for January, and this will give you the breakdown overall of how your money is playing out. So in terms of the paycheck tabs, a lot of this is just heavily budgeted information, or really this pie chart is just budget. But if you want any visual representations of your actual income, you would filter on your monthly tab. And as the month progresses and as you add more paychecks, this will give you a true picture roll up of how things are working. But looking at this tab, you see that your actuals have also been auto-populated here on the monthly tab section. So there is really nothing much for you to do. You can also filter on actual just to make sure everything's going to 0. So you would just do that same thought process. So if we are now on January paycheck number 2, and if we got paid on the 9th, and if we got paid on the 2nd, and our next paycheck is January 16th, I would just put January 16th. And then I'm not going to get paid again until the 30th. So I will put this until January 29th and make sure that any bills that fall within these dates are what I am budgeting and paying for. So it's the same thing that we just did over here. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some more data just so we can see how that looks. All right, so I went ahead and filled in some info for paycheck 2. So I did the budgeted and the actual. So again, very similar. You get your budget breakdown for that income, see how for a pie chart, how things are being divvied out. Also wanted to point out that for this paycheck budget, it's a good example to show how you can split your bills. For Mary and Bill, their rent is $2,000 and they like to split it up. So $1,000 for this paycheck went towards rent here, and then $1,000 for rent went towards this paycheck. So that gives you a nice visual to make sure that you were rolling up to the total. We added a different bill, so we're paying electricity with this pay cycle. For expenses, kept those the same, so added the budgeted and actuals for those. For savings, we added a new savings, so they're also saving for a new car, so put that within their budget as well. And then their debt, added their car payment, So again, you just really fill out your paychecks based off of whatever you're trying to pay for that cycle. And if you go back to your monthly tab, you will see that once again, everything flowed and rolled up into the month. So now for total month, we can see how Bill and Mary did with all of their paychecks because they only get paid twice a month. But looking here for bills, we have rent, internet, electricity. All of those have been entered for their actual amounts. And looking at the income summary, we see we rolled in at $2,155. Looking at expenses, those have also been accounted for both paychecks. So you see that they total up for the entire month's payment. Similar with savings, everything that we added on the paycheck side has been brought over to the monthly for investments and for our debt. So looking at our actual, we can see with both paychecks how much went towards each category. And looking at our savings breakdown, we can see, looking at just this savings column, just for these 4 categories that we added, what percent went where. So looking at Mary and Bill, for example, their emergency fund is their main focus. So that is what took the bulk of their money. So this monthly tab reads the same as the monthly tab if you were just budgeting by month. So you can pop over and look at your income summary just to see in total how you did. And this difference column would just show you the difference based off of what you budgeted and how you actually came in. If it was under, if it was over, if it's red, most likely that's something that we would try to steer away from. So for example, bills, we paid more than what we budgeted and we really don't want to do that. So it would be highlighted in red. And if there were genuinely any good things, like say we were able to put more money towards our savings than we anticipated, they would highlight green. So just give you an overview of holistically for your income summary, how everything is working. So that is really all you would have to do for your paychecks and your monthly tab. Fill those in and they will translate over here. So if you want to use your expense tracker and you remember this section from the other template that I created, you still have that down here at the bottom. So your expense tracker is mainly for your variable income. So any categories that you want to track down here in this section, they will auto populate based off of whatever you inputted up here. So all of your same categories that you entered under expense would be translated to your expense tracker. And you can still check on this each week or every 2 weeks, however you want to do it, because the data is going to be reflective and updated based off of your paychecks and each time you add more money. So an example on how to use this, I'm just going to put in some things. So let's just say on January 2nd, I went to Walmart. I took that out of spending. I spent $50 and you will see this pie chart begin to fill in. So I'm just going to put in a few more things. Okay, so I just dumped a few things that you can say that you spent your money on and the categories that associate with them and their amounts for what I spend. So as you put that in, you'll see that this pie chart will also begin to formulate to show you how much of your money went where. So this is a nice gauge in terms of your variable expenses to tell you, hey, maybe I'm spending a lot on clothing. I might want to pull back. Maybe I'm doing a lot of eating out. That is something I can work on. So you can see and get a gauge and a feel of what's going on with your money. Down here, all this is in gray. So of course that means there's formulas, nothing for us to do. You can put a check mark here and that will highlight whatever category you put the check mark, and it will tell you how many times you got gas. If you check groceries, it will tell you how many times within the month you went to groceries. So if you want to see that, that's something that's also available for you. And this adds up all of your spending per category to tell you what you did for the month. Over here, this is what I really like to use this for, which is the remaining check-in. You see that this column, the rollover balance, is the only thing that is in white. And this is something you could fill out if you want to. If you are a person that rolls over money month over month, so let's say, for example, last month within gas, you still had $30 within that category. I like to roll over my money, so I would put $30 to let me know. But if you're a person who likes to zero out at the end of each month for every category, then you would just leave these zero. But let's say for spending, I had $100 last month. For groceries, I had $150. Eating out, I had $20. I would just add that here so that then those numbers are being accounted for in your left to spend column. So how this left to spend reads is that it adds whatever rollover money you had. So it would add the $30, and it's going to add your actual amount that you added for this category for the month. So depending on when you fill out your paychecks, if it's just the one paycheck or if it's for the month, that number will be showcased here, and it's only actual. So only for your actual column, once you put these numbers in, that is how that populates. So that's how it got to 110, because for the month within gas, if we go back to our paychecks, we put $50 for gas on paycheck 1, and we put $60 for gas in paycheck 2. So adding those together, that brought us the 110 for actual. So it's adding the 30 plus the 110, and it's taking out the 30 that we spent within gas for the month. And that is how we are left with $110. And I like to use this left to spend because this is basically the money that you have until you get your next paycheck. So it lets me know how I'm sitting, if I feel like it's going to be a tough week, if I feel like I'm good. That is what I use this column for. But again, if you don't use it, you can just leave it empty, but it's there if you are that type of person. So in terms of the monthly tab and the paychecks tab, that is everything that you have to do. So hopefully it's a seamless and smooth process. I really tried to keep it simple and make it replicate the monthly tab that we were already familiar with. So after touching on those two tabs, we can go ahead and talk about the other tabs, because those two tabs are the main ones where we would do the most work. And then these other ones are just quick glances and things that we would most likely have to set up one time. So looking at the calendar tab, I did make some adjustments within here based off of some suggestions that was offered. The main ad was adding an income source section so that then you can also see any income and their dates. So the calendar view is just really a visual reference points to really put into idea what paychecks you would have to pay given the pay cycle that we are speaking to. So you can drop this down and change it to whatever year that we're speaking to. So we're approaching 2026. So I just have it scheduled there. You can change the months with the drop down. And once you change your months, you see that these numbers would shift to whatever day the date actually falls on. So we'll just keep it on January. So for the income source, we've been working with Mary and Bill. So we'll say Mary pay 1 and Bill pay 1. Since we established that they are paid bi-weekly, we said that they are getting paid on the 9th. So that was their first paycheck. So for this, you would just put the pay day. So just the number that we are speaking to for that day. So we would put the 9th and the 9th. Since they both got paid on the 9th, that can go there. And then their next payday would be the 23rd. So we would just put 23 and 23. So here you see both income sources have now been added to the calendar to show you exactly when the money should be coming in. And then down here is the bill section. So this is the same as last time. So you can input some of your bills. I'm just gonna make up some due dates because I can't remember what I said. So we'll say rent is due the 1st. We have internet, that can be due the 6th. So there we go. Just put in some examples, but moral of the story is you can, make it however you want so that then it can fill the calendar. So you see your paydays are in green and your bills will pop up in this pink color. So you can see, okay, if I'm paid on the 9th and I'm not getting paid again until the 23rd, all of these bills that fall between the 9th when I get paid all the way up until the next day, so the 22nd, all of those bills would have to fall within that pay cycle that you're speaking to. If you're a person that likes to check it off, if you put a little check mark here, and once that bill is paid, you see that they kind of get grayed out a little bit on the calendar just so that you know, okay, I paid that, and then these are what is left. So that is the adjustment to the calendar view, very similar to last time. So hope you all enjoy. I give the calendar view one tab. So once you input these numbers and you change the months, it will auto-populate to whatever date the bills, if they remain the same. However, the paydays you might have to adjust just to make sure that they fall on the Friday and change those. But month over month, you can just change that and keep the one tab if you would like. But if you want to have multiple calendar tabs, you can just copy and paste this tab and have your multiple. So whatever works for you, you should be able to do. But that overall is the calendar view. And then we can move on to the savings tracker. And really, this hasn't changed at all. So if you're familiar with my last savings tracker, it's exactly the same. But the way this works is that all of your categories that you want to speak to within your savings tracker would all have to be the same categories that you are inputting into your savings sections month over month. So if you want something to populate on that tab, make sure it falls within the savings section. So working with what we inputted for January, we can just add these categories that we have already. So here you will see it will begin to fill in for total save. So this is the money that we were able to put in for January. And for these saved amounts to generate, it has to be actual income. So once you put in something for actual, then that is how this tab reads your numbers. So if nothing is in actual, that is why nothing will pop up for your savings. Here we have a white column, so of course that means something for us to input. This is your goals section. So if you have a particular goal for a certain category, this is where you can input that. So for emergency fund, let's say we want to save $6,000. For a home fund, we want to save $10,000. We have a new car, we want to save maybe $2,000. And then car maintenance, it doesn't have to have a goal. You can leave it empty if you want. So we'll just say that one doesn't have a goal. We're just adding what we can. So you will see as we put in our goals, this remaining to save number populates, because this is basically telling you this is how much money you need to save until you reach your goals across all of these categories that you have a goal for. If you are a person that likes percentages, I did put that on the side just to show you how far you are for each specific goal, because this one is just a roll up of all of the goals that you're working towards. So how this savings tracker reads is that each category gets their own little box. So home down payment, this is everything related to that. Car maintenance, this is everything related to that. An axe I did get for this savings tracker is to add some more lines. So I did add more lines to give you guys more boxes to work with. But these boxes are, again, very heavily formula driven. You see that there's not much for us to input. The only white cell we have is this starting balance. And this is basically any money that you would add for that category if you already had money saved prior to you purchasing this template. Or let's say it's a new year and you saved up for money for your emergency fund last year and you want to start your template off fresh this year, you would again put your money. So let's say we already had $2,000 within our emergency fund. We see that now our total emergency fund has been increased to add our $2,000 to account for. And we see our goal has went down because we are closer to the $6,000 that we are working towards. And the total saved has also been increased to reflect your true number. So setting this page up, all you would have to do is fill in your categories, fill in your goals, and your starting balances. Everything else is auto-populated and will come in month over month. So this tab is really just to serve as a checking point month over month, just to see how things are moving and see how things are gauging. Up at the top, you have your bar graph. So this is just each category will get its own little bar graph, and it will show you who has the most and who's increasing where. And then this bar graph over here is just month over month. So since we only filled out January, that's the only thing that's populating. So over here is the withdrawal tracker. So this is something you would have to come in and change if you are taking money out of your savings tracker. And this is very similar to the expense tracker that we use down here. It's the same thought process. If you're taking money out, we want to account for that. So let's just say on January 15th, we are taking out money for an oil change. And we're going to take that out of our car maintenance. Again, it will populate and we're going to pay $50 for that amount. So looking at car maintenance now, we see that that has now been decreased to $50 to account for the $50 withdrawal that we have taken out. And all of that would translate over here to show your new true amount for your car maintenance, and everything will go down. So that is everything within this savings tracker, very similar to what we already have, and hopefully straightforward so that you can understand what you would need to do. The last thing that we have over here for a tab is our annual dashboard. And this is where I made some changes. So this tab is very formula driven. There's not much for you to do. It should all populate as the month progresses. And this is to show for the year how your money has been behaving. So as of right now, again, we only inputted January, so we're just seeing January numbers, but of course it will reflect for the year as you fill it out. So up at the top, we have our income, we have our bills, expenses, savings, investments, and debt. So you can see as a total how that is rolling. Your cash flow also gives you another indicator for those same amounts, and it rolls up the total for all of that. Here is the pie chart to show you, based off of your cash flow, how much of your money went where for the entire year. Once you input that, this bar graph is also another chart that you can look at to read the same information. And then this will show you month over month. So you'll be able to see, okay, I had a high month in January, a low month in June. To give you more insight into next year, if you want to plan, you can keep that in the back of your mind and know that such and such months may be higher or lower. Now, the only thing here that you can fill in if you choose to, you don't have to, is your income sources. So if you want to just get a deep dive, if you have multiple sources of income and you want to know how much of that particular source you made for the year, again, this is actual money, so nothing will populate until you put in your actual amounts. But anything that you list within income summaries for here on your monthly paychecks, that will be available as a drop down. So if we do Mary's pay and Bill's pay, we see right now we're rolling to a total for these amounts for those guys. But if you had different things, if you had different side hustles, it's nice to see how much that can give you for the year. Now, the main change that I did for this annual dashboard are the pie charts for each of the categories for the year. So here, first we see income. Again, January is the only thing that's filled out. And this will give you another insight into your income to show percent-wise who is helping you or who is giving you the most money. So right now, Bill is contributing about 56% and Mary with 44%. So you can get a total idea. But I think these are very helpful for the example of the bill section. So you can see for the entire year how much of a certain bill is taking your money. So in most cases, a lot of people is for rent or for mortgage. So you will see that that will take a lot. And it gives you some insight, honestly, to show how much for a year you're putting towards rent, you're putting towards internet, electricity. And if you find that you feel like that's too much, it can give you some motivation to maybe try and ask for a lower bill, change your provider so that then you can bring it down. Because month over month, you might not be aware of how much you're paying. And this gives you some insight into where you can make some adjustments to help you within your budget. So that same thought process is applied with all of your categories. So here we have expenses right now rolling up to just the January number of 970. And we're seeing that groceries is taking out a lot at 56%. But if you want to change your habit for the year and maybe bring down eating out, bring down spending, it will give you some insight into that. So again, all the same for savings, investments, debt, just to give you an annual picture and an idea to see where your money is going. But in terms of all the tabs and everything of how this budget template works, that is all that I have. So hopefully I was able to answer your questions. If you have any feedback, if you are enjoying the template, if you like the new things, definitely let me know down in the comments below and I will try to get to that as soon as I can. But overall, I just appreciate and thank you all for supporting me with my first template, which is giving me the motivation to roll out this one. If you see any errors or anything, please let me know. I am a one-woman show, so I made all of this from scratch. So if there's anything off, I will be happy to make that adjustment and just let me know about that. But as for today, that is all I have. Hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you all next time within my next video. Bye, guys.